Okay, so welcome everyone to the Martin Sibley Show. Really excited today to be joined by John and Missy Butcher. I was going to give a quick story of how I've come to know them both virtually, and we're still virtual today actually, but this is the first time we've spoke more in a kind of 2-to-1 sense. But as some of you know, I've been very involved with Mindvalley. I read Vision's book and I've blogged a couple of times about Vision. And I went to the 3 Mindvalley universities that were across Europe and spent about a month abroad. And it was at a couple of those particular MVUs when I saw John and Missy for the first time on the stage and was blown away by you guys. Like, I think as a couple, that love and that world that you talk about relationships has really touched me. I've got a fiance. We've been together 8 years, just over 8 years now. And you know, it definitely some of the things that you've said have helped us on our relationship journey. But of course, you touch all parts of life, really, whether it's around health and career and where to live. I know you guys are in Hawaii at the moment, which we were saying before, I'm massively jealous of in rainy, cold England at the moment. But yeah, no, just thank you, first of all, for joining me, guys.
Oh, we're so excited, Martin. Thank you for inviting us.
Totally our pleasure. We're happy to be here.
Cool. We've got a lot to cover today. I've got some general questions. I know that it'd be great to get your thoughts on, but we're just going to really riff around. Obviously, my tribe is very much about inclusion, and I think a lot. The big connection, I would say, of what I've been working on career-wise and what you guys have done with your backstory and your tribe, if you like, is it's a lot about mindset. As you both know, I'm with a physical disability. I'm in a wheelchair all my waking hours. I have a sort of care team that help me get dressed and shower. And so, you know, physically I'm very limited, but my mindset has always been positive, can do. Even when I had those health problems, I had a hospital stay, or the winters with like chest infections, I was always dreaming about what I was going to do once I was well again. And so I'm fortunate that I'm not often sick, but I know that generally that dreaming big has been a big part of my life. So it'd be great for you both to share a bit about your backstory, but also why you think dreaming big is so important.
That's a great question.
That's a really good question.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take the dreaming big issue first, because that pretty much sums up our backstory, right? That's the context that we live in. But you know, the one thing that I would start by saying, Martin, is that we really don't use the terminology dream too much. We use the word vision, because you know, we discovered a long time ago that there's a pretty big distinction between a dream, a wish, and a consciously created vision that you move toward with intention every day. It's the same flavor, but it's a different level of intensity and commitment.
And I think what happens if you have a life vision like that, super conscious and thought out, it actually starts drawing you toward it, as opposed to you just always pushing.
Exactly.
As you're dreaming, it comes from you. So it's a small little semantic, but it's
big.
Yeah, it's
a small distinction, but it is a big distinction. Yeah, so we've got a methodology for dreaming big, or as we would put it, creating a compelling vision for our life that we can then move toward with intention every day. And that methodology, the Lifebook methodology, basically, is that we get clear on what we want in each individual important area of our life. That means, what is Missy's crystal clear vision for the level of health and fitness that she wants to enjoy, and what's mine? What's our vision for our love relationship? What do we want out of our careers, our exciting, fulfilling, successful careers? What kind of financial abundance do we want to create? What emotional states do we want to experience on a daily basis? We identified 12 areas of life that are the most important areas of life to us. And in each of those areas, we've asked ourselves deeply, what's our ideal vision for this area of our life? Once you've done that in 12 different areas, then you can take those 12 different channels and wrap them all up into one clear, compelling vision for your future. And that becomes your North Star. That's what you're going for. It's not a dream. It really isn't. It's not a wish. It is a vision for the life that you intend to create for yourself, consciously crafted by you and for you. And from that point, you can start moving with clarity and intention toward that vision every single day.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very well said. That's awesome.
Nothing. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, and I can see totally that sort of the word dream can therefore have a sense of, does it become a reality? Whereas a vision very much is bringing it into the reality. You mentioned something there, John, about, you know, really sort of going inside yourself to get clarity of that vision. And obviously, as I referred to when I was asking the question, there was a couple of very particular times when I had ill health. And so that stillness, in a way, enabled me to go more within. But quite often we're all busy and there's a million priorities and the world is so noisy. Like, how do you find that place, that stillness, when you're creating those visions?
Martin, that's the challenge. You nailed it on the key hurdle, the key impediment to creating a crystal clear vision for your life, your North Star, is that most people are stuck on the treadmill of their lives, too busy, too overwhelmed and exhausted with what happened in their life to sit down and quiet themselves down and really ask themselves what they really want. That is the number one impediment. Now for me, why I invented Lifebook was because I got clocked with a severe anxiety disorder that basically shut me down. I was housebound. I don't know if you've heard the term agoraphobia. It was full-blown agoraphobia. So I was as low as you could get. This was about 25 years ago. And that's when I first started to assemble the Lifebook principles, and Lifebook was the tool that eventually got me out of that very difficult situation.
Through your own personal development.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
This was our personal development path, really.
It was the solution to that problem.
It was.
And so what I'm trying to say is, I didn't have a choice. I got knocked off the treadmill.
Yeah.
Like I got my ass kicked off the treadmill into the dirt.
There was no debate.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay,
No choice.
I'm here. I can't do anything. I'm dysfunctional right now. I am starting from ground zero. You can't get lower than not being able to function. How am I going to rebuild my life? And that's when I started through the slow process of starting to assemble the pieces of Lifebook. And, 15 years later, this methodology had completely revealed itself. We never showed it to anybody. This was our tool to make our lives great. And then about, about 15 years ago, we showed it to people for the first time. And that's when we realized this could help other people too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So the way when I talk, I give a lot of keynote conference talks, and I refer to that very particular time when I was in the hospital for a month, and dreaming big or envisioning big. And as you say, you had this anxiety and you were then not able to leave the house, and that's where you created Lifebook and these 12 areas. So would it be fair to say that you have, maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but that sort of Lifebook can help people not get to that point of being knocked sideways off the treadmill, but that they can proactively drop into themselves and do that work without it being as dramatic as maybe you or I had experienced as well?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What you just said is, look, it's available to all of us to make the decision to step back for a moment and examine our lives. It's available to all of us. And the sooner we're able to do that, the sooner we're able to just take a little bit of a break from the craziness and chaoticness of our lives and really examine ourselves and ask ourselves, what are we doing? What do we really want? What kind of a person do I want to become? What kind of a life do I want to live? That will literally be the inoculation from the world, from reality stomping you and knocking you off that treadmill. Yes, you're 100% right.
The way I like to think about Lifebook is that it's a structure with which to kind of become an observer of your own life. You know what I mean?
Evaluate.
Because like we're all in it, and like he's saying, we're on the treadmill and we're in it, and we can't see the forest for the trees, right? So Lifebook gives you that structure to be like, okay, my life is still here, But let's go through and dissect, kind of. It's more like discovery in each one of these aspects of my whole life. Like we have 12 categories, but they all add up to one. So it's almost like you're coming at your life in 12 different perspectives, you know, because you, like, I am a mother, I am a friend, I am an athlete, I am all these things, right? I'm an emotional being, I'm all these things. So when you get conscious on each one of these things, it just brings so much more consciousness to your whole life. And that's really what this is. It's a tool of consciousness to help you really get your whole life without any contradictions. Remove all the contradictions, get all your 12 categories going in the same line, same direction. And what happens when you have that life vision, it starts pulling you. And if you're fully aligned, you go so fast. And it really, so absolutely, it's one of those things that just gets people out of overwhelm. It can be very overwhelming to think about your whole life at the beginning. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to tell me I'm going to think about my whole life in like 6 weeks. But once you're in it, you see, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I need. This is the consciousness and the vision that I need to really get myself together.
Yeah, it helps to bring that sort of almost objectivity to your own life rather than the emotive state we sometimes are in when we're just doing the day-to-day. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. One of the things that I talk a lot about, again, sort of from that disability perspective, we talked about, you know, some of the people watching this have a disability, others are not disabled, but, you know, maybe have relatives or their career is around some kind of inclusion. But there's a thing we have in the UK called the social model of disability. And the premise is that you sort of detach the health condition. So I have a health genetic condition called spinal muscular atrophy. That's the genetic name for my disability. But when we talk about the social model, is that I am disabled by barriers in society. So if I go to a transportation method or a building and there's steps, I'm disabled by the steps because I can't get my wheelchair up them. But if there's a ramp or an elevator, I'm not disabled. So we just talk about this sort of social construct that the more disabled people are at the part of designing environments, but also designing policies in government and business. It's really about representation and that everyone has their voice heard. So the world becomes more suitable and accessible to everybody, right? So all of this is to say that when you have that vision, so I could have this big vision that I'm going to travel to the other side of the world. I love travel. I'm really passionate about traveling. But then having done that inner work and I've, you know, done all the sort of doing the big visions for the 12 parts of life, there are those reality barriers that hit you. So I suppose in the end, my question is, how do you keep up that momentum and that motivation when life starts to try to not to make the universe sound like it's against you, but when you face those barriers that are there in daily life, how do you overcome them?
Great question.
It is a great question, Martin. And now we're getting deep. Like we're going to go deep right now.
That's good.
The first thing that I have to say is that everybody has barriers. Everybody has disabilities. Some people have physical disabilities. Some people have emotional disabilities. Some people have genetic disabilities. In my family, anxiety disorder, deep debilitating anxiety disorder, runs hardcore, and it is a devastating disability if you can't get your arms wrapped around it. Addiction runs heavy in my family. That's not just a small thing. Men in my family die before they're 40 from drug and alcohol abuse. It's a constant thing. So we all have our challenges, not to belittle anybody else's challenges. I'm just pointing out a fact.
Agreed.
We all have our challenges. And I'm going to share something with you right now that Missy and I feel is the most important concept we've ever learned. This is the most intelligent thing any other human being has ever said that we can, with all of our studies, this is a concept so profound that if you can really absorb it, you take complete control of your existence despite your physical circumstances or the circumstances that surround you in the external world. The quote, and there's been many people that have said things like this, but the key quote was by Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, 100 AD, one of the Stoic philosophers. And here's what he said. He said, if you're upset by something, it's not the thing itself that is upsetting you. It's your assessment of the thing. It's how you're processing the thing. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment. You get to decide what it means. The thing is the thing, but how you process it will make all the difference. Is this a tragedy or is it a test?
Or an opportunity.
Is this a toxic challenge or is it an opportunity? You get to decide. And that, now this is so, here's what that means. I'm upset about something. I'm upset about, Miss and I are having a problem, or something happened in business, or something happened in politics. That's a good one. External, external forces.
Right now.
I'm angry, I'm mad. What I have to know, because I know this concept, it's not the thing. It's not the thing that's upsetting me. It's how I'm processing the thing. And I have the power over that. I have the power to reverse that at any moment. One of the greatest two books that have ever been written on this subject are by Viktor Frankl. Do you know Viktor Frankl's work, Man's Search for Meaning? I mean, he proved it out. 3 years in a Nazi concentration camp. Everybody died around him. He stayed alive because of the way he processed the experience. Somehow he was able to find compassion for his captors, for his tormentors in that situation. How the hell do you do that? It's a superhuman trait, but if you can get to the point in your life, and trust me, I work on this every day.
It's a practice.
It's a lifelong practice. This is like the path to guruhood right here. But if you can get to the point where everything in your life that happens to you, it's how you're processing those things. It's not what they are. It's how you're using them. It's how you process them. You then have complete control over your own existence. That's the deepest thing we have to share. It's what our entire community is about. It's what we focus on in our life, and it's hard as hell. It is so hard. Because when you're pissed off, you want to be pissed off. You're down in the dumps, you want to be depressed. You don't want to understand, look, I could get myself out of this in a snap. This is me. It's not that. It's me. And I could turn it around right now.
And there's something amazingly powerful and empowering about that, isn't there? That when you realize you hold the control, you hold the power, that's a beautiful moment. But I always say, it is
the most empowering concept that we've ever heard, because the bottom line is this, Martin, everybody is dealt a hand in life, and you cannot control the hand you were dealt, but you can control how you play that hand. And what we know from poker tournaments, my son is a professional poker player. We know that a great poker player can win with the shittiest hand there is. And a poor poker player will lose with the very best hand. And you see this in life too. You've seen people like Oprah Winfrey that come from the worst possible environment that shoot to the top because of the way she played her hand. Then you see the rich kids that got all the money and all the planes, and their life ends up being a train wreck. They got dealt the best cards, but they couldn't play their cards. I ran across a quote a couple months ago that I love this quote. It said, "Play the hand you were dealt like it was the hand you wanted." That's some powerful stuff. If you can get your mind there, you can do some great things. So I think that is literally the most empowering quote I've ever heard. We work on it every single day. And
it, it shows up across, you can see it everywhere. Like, how people are like, age is not a thing. It's all in your mind. However, you know what I mean? Age is in your mind. Like you even said it in the beginning of this call. You said, look, you had a positive attitude. In the worst, darkest time of your life, you stayed positive. That's exactly what it is. That's what we're talking about. It's you being able to control your own experience through your perception, because that's what we are. If you're a human being, you can do this.
It's you taking sovereignty over your own existence. You defining the meaning of everything that's happening to you. And that's the magic, and everybody in the world needs to hear that, especially now, because that philosophy also happens to be the inoculation to racism, sexism, left versus right, religious, all the stuff that we're dealing with right now, that's the inoculation.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you said you work on it every day and it's hard as hell, because that so resonated with me. Like I remember, you've been at some of the Mindvalley universities, right? There's some beautiful shared moments with like-minded people. There's brilliant teachers on stage like yourselves, and I remember a couple of times thinking, I'm there now. I've got this. I'm a complete person, and then a month later something triggers you, and as you say, you get mad as hell and you're annoyed by it, and it's always trying to bring yourself back to that central point, that empowered point, that everything you've just said was deep and great for everyone.
And how that manifests in our philosophy in our life is the concept that I am the sovereign over my life. My life is mine. I own it.
Yeah.
I am the decision maker at the center of my existence. I am the primary creative and causative force of everything that happens in my life. Do you know who Sean Stevenson was?
Yeah, I've interviewed him actually on my podcast.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Sean was one of our dearest friends.
Friend.
And Sean, overcame some major, he was one of the most positive people I ever met with, truthfully, Martin, probably some of the worst physical disabilities I've ever seen.
Agreed, yeah.
And we were besties, man. But you know what he used to always say? Every time he'd lose another tooth, which was important to him because he couldn't chew very well, or every time anything would happen to him that would knock him sideways, he said, John, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me.
There you go. That's it. That's that quote. It's amazing.
And it's my job to figure out what the meaning of it is. Yes. It's happening for me. So what does that mean? How is this going to make my life better? And when it came to traveling, Sean had a goal, and this
did never come to fruition, but that's okay.
He loved to travel too, and his his dream was to go up Machu Picchu on my shoulders, because I wanted to go up that mountain is my athletic thing, and Sean wanted to conquer Machu Picchu. So we made a deal, and this was on his bucket list goal, that we were going to do that.
Yeah.
We never got around to it.
But
that is monumental thinking right there.
Totally.
He didn't have the legs to go up Machu Picchu, but he was going to figure out how to get up Machu Picchu.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also actually on the night he died, as he was in his accident, he said to his wife and his friend, "This is happening for me, not to me." I mean, that's just like, that's a beautiful example of what we're talking about here.
He was the biggest little man I've ever met.
He's a legend, absolute legend.
Legend.
And brought so much to the world, right? Like it just inspired so many people.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I had a slightly an obvious question, but we are with the pandemic, the C word, the COVID word, and I just wanted to touch base with you both on that. I feel this content is universal, so people are going to be listening to this, and COVID's just a thing in the past. But for those that are listening to it at the moment, I feel we already have touched on the answer in terms of whatever is happening, right? It's happening to teach us something, yeah? I mean, for me, I went 4 months straight doing live stream interviews because I thought I can't go to meetings and conferences. I'm going to bring value right through this laptop. And I also started a new business back in April, which is a disability marketing agency. And we are exploding with growth because it's, as you say, with racism and sexism and disableism, the world is waking up that nobody should be left behind. And so just partly to reiterate your previous point, that there is always opportunity in whatever is happening. But I mean, how have you navigated this year? How's it been for you guys?
It's been the best year of our lives. And I'll tell you,
we don't tell many people that.
Yeah, because some people get upset about that.
You should be more scared. There's a virus out there.
No, Martin, you know what we did when COVID first became a thing and our businesses got hit and everybody got hit. It was like we got this left field black swan event came and really messed up everybody's plans, right?
Totally.
So we really gave some deep thought at the beginning to what our message should be, which is of course going to be a message connected to what we just talked to you about, you know, about self-empowerment.
Yeah.
And here was the main message, which still is how we view the situation and how the Lifebook community views this situation. The Japanese word for crisis, the way they write the word crisis, it consists of two characters. The first one is danger, and the second one is opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So the written Japanese word for crisis is danger plus opportunity. And that's so deep and it's so brilliant. So your number one job is to protect yourself from the danger. You've got to mitigate this negative thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Make sure you're safe, make sure your loved one's safe, take care of the danger. As soon as you're done with that, now you take a look at the opportunity, because every crisis carries with it an opportunity. So what did you do when it hit? You dove deep into online for 4 months. You took advantage of that opportunity. You developed a new skill. You developed a new communication channel. There are people that have made major investments when everyone else is shrinking back financially. They're going in financially. We changed a lot of the things that we just looked around and said, okay, what's the opportunity right now? If everybody else is pulling back and shrinking, we want to push forward. So that's what we did is we took care of the danger. We live on our remote Pacific island. It's not here. It's not a problem for us. It hasn't really changed. But our companies got challenged.
Yeah.
And so we had to deal with that. And then we immediately started asking ourselves, what kind of opportunities does this crisis bring with it that we can take advantage of? And that's why 2020 has been the best year of our life with no close second. When it comes to our love, our intimacy,
quarantine was
family.
amazing.
Quarantine.
Come on.
We all got to chill out a little bit. And
you know how many babies are going to be born?
I was going to say.
Our daughter-in-law is pregnant. Two of my nieces are pregnant. It's crazy.
we got a little time off. Everyone got to chill out a little bit.
And to be with
Everyone
their
got to take
families.
inventory.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
a positive here.
We were so lucky that we were in this beautiful paradise place. But you know, if you were stuck in a small apartment in Manhattan and you had to go through that whole thing, 4 or 5 months locked down in that environment, I'll bet you that you said to yourself, this will never happen to me again. How I'm going to improve my life is I'm going to make sure that if anything like this happens in the world, I'm not going to get caught in a situation like this. I think a lot of people, look what happened with education. Education went online. We've been told by the colleges for years and years and years that you cannot properly run college education online. Well, they proved that untrue. So I think so many positive things are going to come off of the opportunity side of COVID. We've just got to make sure we deal with the danger. So that's how we process that.
And you know, I truthfully think that I look at COVID as a blessing, because even for other people that I know, so many people lost their jobs or livelihood, but it's like, you guys, the whole old structure of what's been going on for who knows how long is coming down. That is what's happening. We're shifting. The earth is like shaking off some dirty stuff, right? So we have to pivot and we have to go with that. But I think that shoot, I forgot my train of thought.
I got it.
You got it. Okay,
I got it.
thank you.
Other than the people that lost family members, and that's, you know, that's tragic.
It's terrible.
But the bottom line is, Missy's right. We are at a place in the human race. Our brains got hooked up together through social media 10, 12 years ago. And that's a two-sided coin.
Yeah.
On the negative side, our ideas are crashing into each other, and there's a lot of toxicity, and we're not handling that aspect of it particularly well. On the other side, we have communication with people all over the world at the speed of light, right? So what COVID did is it basically made us all stay in our houses. We couldn't go out there and have personal contact.
No distractions.
So the internet became key. Communicating on the internet became key. And the internet smashed a lot of the systems that we have. It smashed education. It's smashing government. It smashed live business meetings. It smashed live events. We all had to pivot. And some good's going to come out of that for the human race.
And here's what I was going to say. I think it was really, really good for families to be home with their kids. How many times, parents work. The way that it works in America, parents work, kids go to school. They see each other in the morning for maybe an hour and maybe 2 hours in the evening. And I think that that's part of the fabric breaking in some of our culture, because the family has been broken apart. And I mean, we had a whole year of people, and you guys, have you seen all the beautiful like families singing and doing stuff together I mean, it's like, there's this beautiful aspect of it, really.
There is.
It's been both. It's been the worst hellish thing on so many levels because a lot of things are breaking, but they needed to. But there's also this new rebirth. We're really in a rebirth. And it's time for us to get really creative because that's what's happening. All this energy is being released from the old, so we can use that to build the new.
And I think that's going to happen next year. And I do have a prediction for next year. First of all, I think a lot of people kind of feel this way without being partisan in any way, shape, or form. I think a lot of people feel that COVID was weaponized by all political parties. COVID became a political thing. You know, it's obviously a real medical problem.
Yes.
But then there was the added layer of it became used, and now that especially here in America, with the election done.
Well, it's not really.
Well, it'll be done at some point. It's going to be done.
This is going out on the launch of Lifebook, so hopefully by then it will be done.
Let's hope it's done.
And I think once both sides stop leveraging COVID for political gains, that it's going to fade back to where it belongs, which is a medical problem. And next year, I think we're going to get a grip on the medical side of it.
Yeah.
And we're going to start to be able to enjoy the benefits of some of the things that it did. Look, I remember how hard it used to be to get a lot of people on Zoom meetings in 2019. Well, now the entire world is used to it.
That's true.
It's a better way for us to communicate.
Yeah.
You know, companies, listen to this, Martin. Like Mindvalley is a perfect example. Mindvalley had 250 employees. They're this amazing place to work. And then all of a sudden, nobody could come to work. Now, Vishen would have never pivoted to Zoom meetings to run Mindvalley, but he did. And now all of a sudden, a lot of people like Vishen are thinking, do I really need 20,000 square feet of office space, or could I get by with half of that? Do my people really need to spend an hour both ways commuting in their car to get here when they could have a higher quality of life working from home? These are positive things.
See, we're gonna rejigger everything. We're gonna make it way better for everybody. That's what my hope is, for sure.
Definitely. And I'd love to share back with you from the disability perspective. That point you made about danger and opportunity resonates so much, because I was told on a personal level that I would, you know, that the virus posed potentially more danger because of my disability, right? So there was okay, what do I do to mitigate that risk? I also mentioned having the care team coming in. So I was like, okay, if they have to come in and help me, then, you know, there are precautions we need to take. So there was all of that stuff you mentioned about mitigating that, you know, the danger. But then from a community perspective, there are a lot of people with disability that have been calling out for education at home, working remotely. And they even started live streaming the theatre productions from London. And we were told
that's
we
awesome.
Can't do that. We're not, you know, it's not commercially okay. It's not acceptable. COVID comes and we're all sat watching. Yeah, so it really has, you know, leveled the playing field for a lot of disabled people, which, back to your point, there's a big opportunity off the back of it.
Let me just say something a little bit disconnected, but I want to share this about COVID, because one of the things that was disappointing to me is all of the solutions and inoculations with masks and with social distancing and all that. I was a little bit disappointed that basically nobody on the planet talked more about how you could get healthier and how you could boost your immunity so that you could just not get it. Right? I mean, I wish that there would have been a little bit more emphasis on what each of us could do to make ourselves stronger, right?
There were a few people.
There were a few people.
People did that.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I think next year's an opportunity, because it's still going to be here. We're still going to have to handle it. So maybe next year we'll see a little bit more of that.
Yeah. And actually, it's back to your point about opportunity, that some freaked out and they ate bad foods and they didn't do exercise and they became maybe depressed and they took it that way, but that was a choice, right? On some level, that's still a choice. Whereas, you know, again, just to share more of a personal experience, but I've actually, I started getting a bit of a belly. I'm late 30s now, and obviously exercising is hard being in a wheelchair, but I started eating better this year. And I blogged about this on the weekend, that I actually had therapy for the first time ever. And it was a mixture of the crunch of COVID and some of that stress and anxiety it brought. But it surfaced things that I'd always suppressed. But because I was sat more still, I was more aware of the fact that I had these anxieties, and I'm owning it. Like I'm looking
Beautiful.
after my mind the way we should look after our body. And so for me, it's been a personal development boot camp as well, you know.
Yeah.
Same with us, man.
I think a lot of people, I think that, and that's the beautiful opportunity. I mean, look, you had to sit in your own life, all of us, for like all these
6 months.
And it's like, you cannot escape that. You're looking at your life. You are seeing it. It's like, okay, this is what I've done so far. So I think a lot of people got depressed and said, shit, this sucks. And then other people were like, wow, I'm gonna own that. A lot of people went inside, like you said. The whole human race was in timeout for like almost this whole year, which is not a bad thing. You know, take a break. Go inside for a minute.
Well, look, guys, I think we could probably talk for about 4 more hours, but
listen, Martin, I do want to ask you, can I ask you a question?
Of course, it'd be a pleasure.
Okay. Here's a question that I'd like to ask you, and I think you'll be uniquely qualified to answer this. One of the things that I've discovered in my life is this is basically the spiritual concept of polarity. And as it applies to business and success, I've been around a lot of creative geniuses all my life. And I don't throw that term around. I'm talking about creative geniuses. My dad is one of them. He's a painter. He's one of the most successful commercial artists in the history of the world. I've produced 12 full-length records. I've worked with prodigy musicians. Vishen is a creative genius. I've been around these people all my life. And one of the things that I've learned about them is that you cannot simultaneously develop a skill at that level without having retardation. And I'm not using that in a politically incorrect term. I mean true retardation, which is basically decelerated or going backwards in other areas of your life. For instance, I produced a couple records for one of my dear friends, who's one of the best guitar players in the world. He was voted by Guitar World magazine one year as the best guitar player in the world. But he can't balance a checkbook. He's completely dysfunctional in most areas of his life. Why? Because in order to develop that skill, he literally had to practice for 13 hours a day for 10 straight years, and therefore he can't do a lot of other things. I know that some of our blind friends, we've had some blind friends go through Lifebook, and I know that they've got superpowers in other areas of their lives. The way that they can hear, the way that they can smell, it's almost like they've got this sixth sense. I've noticed in my life, with every challenge comes a commensurate potential advantage. And I'm wondering, like for instance, have you been in a wheelchair all your life?
Yeah. I think I was 3 when I first had an electric wheelchair, yeah.
Okay, so here's my question for you, Martin. So you were not able to spend your time for maybe 30% of the time that normal boys, they're out there running and playing around. Then the other 70%, they're in school, they're in bed, they're watching TV, whatever. But that 30% of the time when they're doing that stuff, you were doing something else that they weren't doing. And so what I want to know is if you've noticed any relationship between, if you get challenged over here, sometimes something will pop out over there that's a major advantage. You know what I'm saying? Am I saying this right?
Yeah, so I want to tell you, first of all, I've got goosebumps right now.
Oh,
and second of all, we spoke about this with my team at work today. And I heard that it was very specific to my disability, but I think it's probably extrapolated through others that are wheelchair users. There can be a higher intelligence, particularly emotional intelligence. All my life, I've needed people to do things for me physically. So without being cocky or arrogant, I am an extremely good people person because I've worked on that skill more, as opposed to, as you say, running around the field, kicking the football, the soccer ball. So, and my cousin is deaf and has a heightened sense of vision because of when he's doing sign language. So yeah, I 100% agree.
You know, John Stevenson was like that. his level of emotional intelligence, his level of empathy was superhuman.
Yeah.
Sean couldn't do a lot of the things that everybody else could do, but he had a commensurate superpower because of that. So I'll tell you, this is one of the things that I've done in my life. And I would just suggest this to everybody, no matter where you find yourself. If you have what could be considered a disability, an affliction, something that other people don't have to deal with, search for the opposite of that. Search what is on the other side of the polarity of that. Sean developed skills that he could not have possibly developed if he would not have been in the situation he was in.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That's an awesome way to draw us to a close. I think really I was going to just say that this is going out mid-December. Because obviously Lifebook's been around for a little while, because I remember doing it at Mindvalley. So is it like a relaunch that's happening?
Well, Lifebook's always available. We start classes every couple of weeks, but the thing about the December class is that there will probably be between 5,000 and 7,000 people going at the same time. And Missy and I are going to facilitate that ourselves, and we almost never do that.
Well, usually they're recorded calls, but this will be live with us.
So basically what's going to happen is people will sign up in mid-December. The class will start in January. It's a 6-week class. We will facilitate it with a live call every week. The offer is beautiful, Martin. The offer is Lifebook for free, but with accountability. So this is a $1,250 online course. But this offer is $500, and it's a security deposit basically, and it's an accountability deposit. If you go through the entire course and finish it at the end of the 6 weeks, you can request your money back and you get your money in full. But you have to finish it.
Yeah.
Our mission is 1 million people with a Lifebook, and we're dead serious about that. Yeah. So if you go through the course and finish it and request your money back, you got us one step closer to 1 million people with a Lifebook. We give you a big hug, and that. But we have a second offer at the end of that that invites you to continue your journey with us into our second level program. And most people love that second offer, but it doesn't matter. It's $500 down. It's an accountability deposit. You can get your money back at the end of the program, but only if you do what you said you were going to do and finish it and make your Lifebook. And then we're going to run that class. So we'd love to have your tribe join us.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll share other information with the video and the podcast for people to read up more on it. But really, just for this interview, thanks so much for your time today. It's been beautiful to meet you both kind of in person.
Same here. We'll see you in person soon, I'm sure.
For sure. It's been such a nice time to hang out with you, man.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, take care, both of you.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.